So like I said, it was not surprising, but it was obviously disappointing because it's going to have ramifications that are that are going to come into play now. I don't think it'll deter them. I do think it'll deter them from getting the kind of help that they need or getting the kind of assistance that they should get, or rather their eligible family members should get. But in my opinion, I don't think it'll deter them from actually entering the United States.
So, what do you think the point was in passing this rule?
The point was to discourage more people from applying for green cards, because what it's doing is not only is it affecting, because the way this came into place is that some variation of this was already into existence. There were poverty guidelines. There were when you had to apply for, say, a family member for a green card, you had to show that you're going to be able to support them for a certain period of time so they don't go on to become a public charge. That was already there in the rule books. Mm-hmm. So they didn't come out of this in thin air. The point was to expand on the definition of public charge so more and more people would not be able to get permanent residence. So they increased the they expanded on the definition of it. So it was to discourage more and more people to get permanent residence. Even before the ruling went into effect, immigrants were being affected in a way that more and more immigrants were actually foregoing their health insurance, or rather they were being encouraged to forego it because they either didn't know that it was applicable to them, or they didn't know that it's available to them, basically. And I think this number is only going to go up because as the fear and the hysteria increases, these people are more and more of these immigrants, or rather non-immigrants, are going to be forced to let go of the health insurance that they already have, or there's so much misinformation out there mm-hmm. regarding this whole issue. There are people who there's actually a section of non-immigrants who are not even subject to the public charge rule, but they probably don't know about it, like refugees and asylees mm-hmm. and applicants under the VAWA, Violence Against Women Act, certain members of the U.S. Armed Forces. They're not subject to this rule, right. But that information is not readily available out there. So more and more people are going to be foregoing their health insurance and health insurance for their eligible family members. And that's an issue, especially in the current scenario where we're facing this pandemic, where we're facing the coronavirus fears. Mm-hmm. It's going to come it's really going to come to the forefront, because more and more people who are supposed to get tested are not going to get tested due to lack of coverage. Lack of information and a lot of misinformation out there, because there is this, how do I put it? There is this idea that immigrants use public benefits. Immigrants cross the border and they come here and they use public benefits that are only meant for citizens, which is actually not the case. Mm-hmm. Because take SNAP, for example, the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, which was formerly known as food stamps. Undocumented immigrants or non-immigrants who are here as students or visitors are not even eligible for SNAP. But who are eligible are their U.S. citizen family members, like children. So what was affecting them was their lack of ability to get health insurance, or rather this misinformation that not knowing where they stand, whether they could get health insurance or not. So I think this was their big problem, because especially with low-income families who need this kind of coverage, either didn't know that they were eligible for it, or they didn't know, or didn't know how to go about it, or whether, or rather didn't know that they could or could not get it. And now there's even more misinformation out there, because they're gonna, even people who are eligible, like children, their children are who are eligible for it. They're gonna take these programs away from their children, or rather disenroll them from these programs, thinking that they'll be denied entry or they are not gonna get a green card. So this was already an issue, and this is going to become more of an issue now.
What do you think the biggest reward is with working with immigrants?
Definitely the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the different fields of life that these people come from. And me being an immigrant myself, I see myself in them. You know, for me, they're not cases. For me, they're my father, who was here for 17 years before he was granted a green card for me, this is my mother who was subjected to who was subjected to employment abuse because she was stuck in H-1B. For me, this is me, the person who came here on a student visa and had to go through the system. So for me, these are my stories. These are my people. And so I see myself in them. I see my family in them. So it's very rewarding to work for them and to see them go from one end to the other end and getting some decisions on their cases.